You versus you. The enemy within you is much more powerful than the enemy outside of you. Now, we all know that we have an inner critic inside of us that we battle. We have conflicts that keep us up at night, that give us hesitation when we're trying to make decisions. And we have this inner critic inside of us that is by design. And I believe that for the most part, it's to help keep us in balance, keep us safe, and have us analyze and be practical about the decisions that we make. However, if we aren't in check with our inner critic and that internal dialogue that we have, we believe a lot of the things that that inner critic wants to tell us. And a lot of the times they are old stories that we have pulled from the past to tell us that what our future actions are going to result in is what the past was like. Or we make up stories to fill in the gaps of things because we don't have enough information or we don't know what's going to happen. So we just automatically, as like a default setting in the brain, we assume the worst. It's just in most of our nature to do that. And so we have to make actual intentional efforts to change the script and to know when it's time to override and be that CEO, to be that leader internally, and know when to shut those stories down and know when to reframe perspective, reframe thoughts, and win the battle over you because it's only you against you in the world. And depending on what side you want to play, with or against yourself is going to be how much you decide how long you want to struggle for and how much you decide to stay in that conflict. Now, of course, there are lots of things that happen in the world. We can't change that, but we know we can change how we respond to things. And it is really easy for us to get upset, to get annoyed, to get frustrated, especially if you're in the car driving, if you're out in public, if you're around a different crowd of people, if you're around any kind of people, family, friends, sometimes, depending on the mood that you're in, yourself, and what you're doing and what you're not doing. And so I want to just break down a couple of things that have helped me over the years in working on that inner dialogue, that battling between what I want to do, what I think I need to do, and where I need to net out, and just ways in which I'm in alignment that I can move forward with so that I'm not hesitating and I'm not delaying living and living life, living experiences, and not being stuck in my head. So one thing we need to know, like having self-doubt, having a little bit of that internal conflict, there's something healthy to that. We want a little bit of that. So it's not to say we always have to stay completely positive or this like toxic positivity where nothing can go wrong. That doesn't make any sense. That's not how life works. But what we can do is really acknowledge the different tones and the different voices or the different tonalities in our head. And when we're speaking to ourselves from a much lower place of emotions or a much higher place of emotions or in a much more higher consciousness. And so the first thing you want to consider when you start having this battle about what it is that you want to do, where you want to go, who you want to be with, and just anything in your life, like what stories are you telling yourself? What stories are running through your mind? What thoughts are actually running through your head? So sit and observe as like a step one. Sit and observe what is actually being said. And then what do you believe to be true of those stories? Even if it happened in the past, even if your mind wants to run through scenarios of what had happened in the past, you were a much different person in the past. You had no idea what you were getting into as you do today. And how are those stories beneficial to you? And if they are, if there's some piece of it that is, you can pull them out, or most of those stories from the past that want to shame us, guilt us, or make us feel scared and vulnerable unnecessarily need to be looked at in a different perspective. It's kind of like a triangle perspective. And so when you're looking at those thoughts, you can observe these thoughts are helpful. These thoughts are just tearing me down. These thoughts are making me sad. These thoughts are making me angry. We can work ourselves up into some sort of tizzy and an emotional whirlwind just simply by overthinking in the wrong direction. So we want to pay attention to what stories are going through our head and what is it that we actually believe and what do we want to hold on to? What is it that we want to really start telling ourselves? And maybe we want to start flipping the script. And the second thing that we want to look at is the tonality of that voice. And so this is something, if you've ever really paid attention, you'll know when you're in a like a grumbling, lower level, lower vibrational emotion, there's a criticism to the tone. There's a snarkiness, there's an aggression, there's a frustration, there's a tone in the tone in your internal dialogue that's telling you or that's saying these things to you in a way that is already opinionated. It's frustrated. It's sad, it's depressed, it's mopey. There's like there's an edge to it. There's an essence to it. And it feels kind of in a lower tone. It kind of makes you continue to perpetuate these emotions, as opposed to when you're hearing your higher consciousness, your higher self, God, the universe, another layer, guidance, internal guidance, that spirit of grace, spirit of God, the spirit of the divine. There's something that's more elevated in the tone. There's something that's much more soft and graceful and kind and compassionate. And there's a sweetness to it, and there's a subtlety to it, and there is no tone to it. It's just this almost like a whisper, and it feels sort of at a higher level. You can almost kind of put them on a range and a scale. And so if you understand not only like what's being said, but how it's being said to you, how is it being communicated to you in your mind, you can start to easily just see, am I just having my inner critic kick up and be a naysayer and put things down because that's just a habitual way that has been approached in the past? Or can I shift over and find the guidance and the grace and the compassion, even if it doesn't always have to be, um, goody two shoes or some sort of holier than thou, extra positive message. You can still get constructive criticism in this higher tone, but you also know that this might be more in alignment, or this might also take into account another perspective. So you check the tone, you check the stories, check the vibe, check your stories, check your vibe. And then once you really assess what's going on inside of you, then you make the final decision. And this can happen really quickly over time as you get used to practicing this and you're observing what you're thinking, you're observing how you're feeling, and then you ultimately make the decision, do I want to continue to be in this place, or do I want to shift and change it? Because I can look at every situation with two sides. I can look at something with a positive lens or a negative lens, or even a neutral lens. I cannot have it bother me at all. And I can continue to take my energy and my life force and do something more in the direction that I want to. So I can discard things as well that don't make sense. And so if we're able to understand and really pay attention to how we feel, what we're thinking, and how it's driving us forward, how it's making us move forward, then we're ultimately in control. We win the battle of that inner dialogue in between us. We make sure that we're always seeing the bigger picture, the broader perspective, because we're taking time and looking at this trifecta, this triangle perspective, as I like to look at it, and really understanding what is happening, what is it that we need to understand, and how do we want to leverage that knowledge, that insight, that intuition, and move forward and do some really great things. And great things are just you enjoying life and not wallowing in any suffering any longer than you have to. There's some really heavy things in the world that we have to pay attention to. And in between that, we can find the softness and compassion. So if we can lighten up and loosen up the negative self-talk that we have, or talking ourselves out of things that we know we should be doing, or any hesitation that we have on doing those things, And we're just going to get to enjoy things much sooner, much faster, and much more. And that is my hope for all of you. That is my hope for myself. It's a daily practice that we have to make sure that we get into. It's not like it's a one and done thing that you learn and then you're done. You actually have to apply it all the time. And we get to these new levels in life and we think that things are like, we've got this, we understand these lessons. And then it comes back up again because that's just how life is. It's just a fun game that we get to play and we get to understand really about ourselves. And that is really the goal. It's the relationship that you have with yourself, that internal self of you, and how you feel connected to the world and how you're moving about. And so this is like the ultimate game of you versus you. And how much do you hold yourself back because of the things that you say to yourself and the ways that those things, those thoughts, those stories make you feel? And then ultimately having the understanding, the responsibility, and the accountability to take charge and lead yourself or stay in a wallowing energy and not do those things. There's a lot that we want to accomplish in our lives, and most of it we may not get to, but get to some of it, get to as much as you possibly can. So when you look back, you can have a life that you feel really proud of. And just know that any internal battle, even if you think, or any conflict that you have, it's really you against you. Even if it feels like it's your neighbor or a friend or a family member, it's really you against you because they're just a reflection of you. And so if we can learn how to shift that perspective and just see that reflection of you in them and them in you, that sort of like we are all one and all is one, you'll be able to handle and understand how to approach it in a way that actually resolves the conflict. And if we could all find that peace within ourselves, then the world might actually be in a little bit more of peace because all we do when we are in internal struggles and internal battles, we take that out in the world. So the sooner we can understand what's going on within us, the less we're going to put out. So connect with yourself, understand your stories that you tell yourself, rewrite the stories that you want to tell yourself. You can shift your energetic emotions little by little to get to the place that you want to. And ultimately, you will always decide how long you want to stay in any given state of mind, in any given state of feeling. So it's up to you. And I hope you can leverage some of this to shift and change your energy in the direction that is just all for your benefit. Thank you all for being here. I love you all, and I will see you the next time. Take care. Bye.